He first saw her walking along the dusty trail that cut through the open land near his ranch. Luke had been riding back after checking his cattle, his horse moving in a slow, steady rhythm. The sun was dropping behind the hills, letting long shadows stretch across the ground. That was when he noticed the small figure up ahead. She walked with careful steps, her shoulders slightly lowered, as if she wanted no one to notice her. Her clothes were simple, and her long dark hair fell loosely down her back. She carried no pack, only a small woven bag that looked too light to hold anything important. Luke slowed his horse, watching her from a distance. She seemed tired, maybe even struggling to keep a steady pace. He wasn't the kind of man who ignored someone who needed help. So he nudged his horse closer and called out, in a calm and respectful voice, "Ma'am, are you all right?" The woman froze for a moment, then turned her head slowly. She did not raise her eyes. She kept them down, as if she feared she might offend him by looking directly at him. Luke saw at once that she was Apache, everything from the style of her clothes to the careful, almost silent way she moved told him that. "I am fine," she said softly, her voice barely strong enough to carry the words. Luke didn't believe she was fine. Anyone with eyes could see she was tired, probably from walking miles under the hot sun. He climbed down from his horse, keeping a respectful distance so she would not feel threatened. "You look worn out," he said gently. "If you want, I have water. I don't want to trouble you, but it's a long walk wherever you're going." The woman hesitated. She did not step forward. Her hands tightened on her bag. She seemed unsure whether she should trust him. Luke didn't push her. He simply walked to his saddle, pulled out his canteen, and set it on a rock between them. "You can take it," he said. "You don't have to talk to me. I'll wait over here." He walked back to his horse and stood quietly, giving her space. After several long seconds, she stepped forward and picked up the canteen. Then she placed it carefully back down and stepped away again. "Thank you," she whispered. Luke nodded. "You're welcome." He studied her quietly. She looked fragile, but not weak, more like someone who had held many worries alone for a long time. He could see she was shy by nature, the kind of person who rarely spoke unless necessary. "Do you live nearby?" he asked lightly. "If you're heading toward my ranch, it's still a long walk." She shook her head. "I came from the other side. I was visiting family." "Oh." Her voice cracked a little at the end, as if the word family carried more weight than she wanted to show. Luke didn't ask more. He wasn't someone who pulled things out of people. "Would you like a place to sit for a while?" he asked. "Just to rest before you go on?" She hesitated again, then nodded slowly. Luke guided her to a patch of shade under a cottonwood tree. He sat several feet away, making sure she didn't feel crowded. For a long moment, they said nothing. She looked at her hands, twisting the strap of her small bag. "My name is Luke," he finally said, trying to make things easier. "Luke Hart." She kept her eyes down but replied in a soft tone, "My name is Naira." Luke repeated it quietly, letting the name settle in his mind. It suited her, gentle and soft, like the way she spoke. They sat in silence again, listening to the wind move through the branches. Luke wasn't bothered by the quiet. He could tell she wasn't used to talking, and he didn't want to make her uncomfortable. After several minutes, Naira's voice suddenly came again, but this time something inside her tone had changed. It was still soft, still shy, but there was something firm buried inside it. Something decided. "I want 5 children," she whispered. Luke blinked. He wondered if he heard her wrong. Maybe she was talking to herself. Maybe the wind changed the sound of her words. But then she lifted her head just slightly, and her next words came more clearly. "I want 5 children from you." Luke froze. His mouth opened but no words came out. It was the last thing he had expected. She didn't even look at him. She stared at the ground as if the earth itself was easier to face than his eyes. He didn't know whether to laugh, or cough, or ask if she was joking. But the shy trembling in her hands told him she was not joking. She had said something that took great courage for her. Something she probably never dared to speak to anyone before. "Naira," he said slowly, choosing every word with care. Did you mean what you just said?" She nodded, still not raising her eyes. Her cheeks had turned deep red. Her breath shook a little, as if she feared he might get angry or feel insulted. "I know I should not say such things," she whispered. "I know it is not normal. I am sorry, but I said what my heart wanted to say." Luke knelt down slightly, trying to see her face, but she kept her gaze lowered. He didn't reach for her. He only tried to understand. "Why me?" he asked softly. "You don't know me well." She swallowed hard. Her voice broke when she answered. "I have seen you before, helping people, helping elders, helping lost travelers. You speak kindly. You never push people. I trust you." Luke felt something change inside him. She wasn't being bold. She wasn't trying to shock him. Her words had come from honesty, from a heart that had held its hopes quietly for too long. "You don't have to be afraid," he said gently. "I'm not upset. I'm just surprised." "I know," she murmured. "I surprised myself too." Luke gave a small smile, but he didn't let her feel embarrassed. He sat back beside her, the distance still respected. "I don't know what life will bring," he said quietly, "but I want to understand you better, Naira. I want to know why you carry such a big wish in your heart." She finally lifted her eyes for the briefest moment. They were full of fear, hope, and something fragile but strong at the same time. "I want a family," she whispered. "A warm home, a place where hearts stay together. And when I looked at you, I felt something I never felt before." Luke didn't answer right away. He let her words settle, let them breathe. The sky above them turned a soft orange as the sun lowered further. The quiet around them grew peaceful again. Naira slowly stood, clutching her small bag. "You're not troubling me," Luke replied. "Let me walk with you a little." She looked both relieved and nervous at the same time, but she nodded. Together, they walked along the trail as the evening light wrapped around them. Neither of them knew what the future held, but one thing had changed. A shy Apache woman had spoken her heart without fear, and a quiet cowboy had listened with respect. That moment, strange, unexpected, and honest, was the beginning of something neither of them could forget. Luke could not get Naira's words out of his mind long after that evening walk. The way she had spoken, soft, nervous, trembling, yet honest, stayed with him. He had met many people in his life, but none had ever come to him with such innocent boldness. Most people talked loudly, made big plans, or tried to show strength they didn't have. But Naira had spoken from a place of pure truth, and Luke felt that deeply. The next morning, he found himself thinking about her again while feeding his horses. He kept remembering the way she held her woven bag close to her chest, as if it was her shield. He remembered the soft way she said her name, and how her eyes had only risen for a second when she spoke from her heart. Later that day, instead of staying on the ranch, he decided to ride toward her village. Not too close. He did not want her or her people to misunderstand his intentions. But he wanted to make sure she reached home safely the night before. He rode until he saw familiar signs of the small Apache settlement through the trees. Smoke from cooking fires rose into the sky, and quiet voices drifted through the air. That meant she had made it. He turned his horse around, feeling strangely relieved. He was not sure why he cared so much, but he did. Over the next few days, Luke tried to focus on ranch work. There were fences to repair, cattle to check, hay to store. But he noticed his mind drifting again and again toward Naira. Something about her story felt incomplete, as if he had only seen a small piece of the truth. He felt there was more behind her sudden wish, something she had not shared yet. On the fourth day, as he was fixing a broken gate, he heard a soft sound behind him. He turned and saw her standing a few steps away. She looked shy as always, her eyes lowered, hands clasped together. She must have walked a long distance again. "You came all the way here?" Luke said gently. She nodded. "I wanted to thank you for walking with me that evening." "You don't have to thank me," he said with a small smile. "You weren't a burden." She hesitated, her breath catching slightly. Then she added, "I also wanted to explain." Luke set the hammer aside and wiped his hands on a cloth. He walked toward a wooden bench near the barn and sat down. He motioned for her to join him, but she chose to sit on a small rock instead, still keeping a respectful distance. Her posture showed nervousness, but also determination. She had come for a reason. "I am not used to speaking much," she said quietly, "so sometimes my words come out wrong." Luke shook his head. "You didn't say anything wrong." She gave a faint smile, almost invisible. "Still, I want to tell you why I spoke like that." He leaned forward slightly, not pressing, just listening. Naira took a slow breath before she began. "Where I grew up, family is everything. My people believe that a home is strongest when there are many hearts inside it, but I was always the quiet one. I did not talk much at gatherings. I stayed away from crowds. Some people thought I was strange." Luke could imagine that. He had seen enough shy souls in his life, good people who were simply too gentle for loud places. "Many girls my age found partners," she continued softly. "But I never spoke to anyone. I always listened, but I never shared my thoughts. So people thought I did not want a future." Luke frowned slightly. "Is that what you told yourself too?" She lowered her head again. "No. I always wanted a family. More than many others. But I did not know how to say it." Her voice grew even softer. "I used to see you sometimes. You helped elders cross the river during floods. You fixed a broken cart for a woman who was traveling alone. You repaired a part of our fence, even though it was not your responsibility." Luke blinked. He had done those things, but he never thought anyone noticed. "I watched you from far away," she whispered. "You were kind without wanting anything in return. I felt that if I ever spoke my heart, you would listen." Luke felt something warm settling inside his chest, something gentle, something unexpected. "So when I saw you on the trail," she continued, "my heart felt different. It felt brave. It felt like if I did not speak then, I might never speak again." Luke nodded slowly. "That explains a lot." Naira wrapped her fingers tightly around the strap of her bag. "But I understand something else now," she said. "I understand that I cannot just say such a thing to a man I barely know. I do not want to frighten you, or make you feel responsible." Luke chuckled softly. "You didn't frighten me. Just surprised me." Finally, Naira raised her eyes. They were full of emotion, fear, hope, confusion, and something deeper. "I do not expect you to agree with what I said, but I want you to know, those words came from a good place, from a wish, not a demand." Luke nodded, touched by her sincerity. "I know, and I appreciate you telling me all this." "Do you think badly of me?" she whispered. He shook his head firmly. "Not at all. I think you're brave. Braver than you believe." Her breath trembled softly, as if those words meant more to her than he realized. After a long silence, Luke spoke again. "Naira, I want to know you better, not because of what you said, but because I want to understand your heart." She looked startled, almost confused. "Why?" "Because," Luke said with gentle honesty, "you spoke to me with more truth in one moment than many people speak in a lifetime." Naira lowered her gaze again, but this time, it wasn't from fear. She reached into her small woven bag and took out a piece of cloth wrapped around something. She placed it gently on the bench beside him. "What's this?" Luke asked. "A gift," she said softly. "I made it last winter. I never knew who it belonged to. But now, I know." Luke unwrapped the cloth and found a small hand-woven bracelet made from plant fibers and colored beads. It was simple, but beautiful. He could tell she had made it with care. "You didn't have to give me this," he said, touched. "I wanted to," she whispered. "It is something from my hands. Something honest." Luke held the bracelet gently. "Thank you, Naira. Truly." They sat in silence again. But this time the silence felt warm, not awkward. The air between them felt lighter, safer. She seemed more comfortable, her shoulders less tense, her breath steadier. After a while, she stood. "I should go before night comes." Luke stood as well. "Can I walk you part of the way again?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, I would like that." They walked side by side down the quiet trail as the evening sky turned soft and golden. Luke didn't speak much, and Naira seemed grateful for that. She liked silence when it felt safe. Before they parted, she looked at him once more and said quietly, "Thank you for listening." "You don't need to thank me," Luke replied. "My door is open if you ever want to talk." She smiled a small, shy smile that held more meaning than any words she could have spoken. Then she walked away through the trees, her figure slowly fading into the soft evening light. Luke watched her go, feeling something he had not expected: hope. He didn't know where this path would lead, but he knew one thing for certain. He wanted to keep walking it. Step by quiet step, with the shy Apache woman who had spoken her heart so bravely. Luke woke before sunrise the next morning, but instead of beginning his usual chores, he found himself sitting on the porch steps with a cup of coffee, staring out across the quiet land. The sky was still dark blue, slowly lightening at the edges. Birds had not yet started singing, and the world felt still. But his mind wasn't still at all. It was full of Naira, her soft voice, her shy smile, the calm way she explained her heart, and the honesty she carried like a fragile treasure inside her. He had never met anyone like her. She didn't try to impress him. She didn't try to hide anything. She just spoke the truth, even when her voice shook. Luke respected that more than he could explain. Over the next few days, Luke thought carefully about everything. He wasn't a man who rushed decisions. Life on the ranch had taught him patience. Weather changed, cattle moved, seasons came and went. Nothing good grew overnight. But with Naira, something was already growing inside him, slow and steady, like a new tree taking root. He found himself wanting to see her again, wanting to understand her completely, wanting to know the small things: what made her smile, what made her scared, what dreams she held besides the wish she had once spoken without fear. One afternoon, Luke rode out to a quiet creek where he often went to think. The water was clear, moving softly around smooth stones. He sat on a fallen log and watched the sunlight flicker across the surface. As he sat there, he heard light footsteps behind him. He turned, already knowing who it was, even before he saw her. Naira stood there, holding a small basket. Her eyes once again lowered in her shy way. "I made something for you," she said gently. Luke smiled and motioned for her to sit. She sat on the ground near him, still keeping a respectful distance, as if she didn't want to take too much space in his life. She opened the basket and revealed warm bread she had baked, along with dried berries and roasted corn. "You didn't have to bring this," Luke said softly. "I know," she whispered, "but I wanted to." They ate quietly, comfortable in the shared silence. Luke noticed how her presence softened the world around him. Even the wind felt calmer when she was nearby. After they finished eating, Naira folded her hands in her lap. She looked nervous, as if she had something more to say. Luke waited patiently, knowing she needed time. "Luke," she finally said, "I have been thinking a lot. I know my words were strong that day. I know they may have scared you. I don't want you to feel pressure. I don't want you to feel like you must fulfill my wish." Luke turned toward her. "Naira, you didn't force anything on me. I know sincerity when I see it." She took a slow breath. "I want you to understand why I said such a thing. It was because I saw something in you that felt safe, something I did not feel anywhere else." He nodded, his voice gentle. "I want you to feel safe around me. Always." Her eyes lifted for just a second. "I do." They sat in silence again, listening to the water. Luke thought about how different she was from anyone he had ever known. Most people told stories about themselves, talked more than they listened, and used loud words to cover quiet fears. But Naira's strength was in her quietness. Everything she said was real. He leaned forward slightly. "Naira, can I ask you something?" "Too." She nodded. "Why did you trust me more than others?" She looked down again, brushing her fingers across the edges of the basket. "Because you never judged anyone. You help people without being asked. You speak little but mean everything you say. People like you are rare." Luke swallowed slowly, feeling her words settle deep inside him. "And," she added softly, "you speak to me in a gentle way. I am not used to that." His heart tightened at that. He didn't ask what she meant, but he understood. Life had probably not been kind to her. Quiet souls often carried heavy stories. "Naira," he said, his voice low but warm, "I want to tell you something too." She waited quietly. "I haven't stopped thinking about you since that day on the trail." Her breath caught slightly. She didn't look up, but he saw her hands tremble. "I don't know what the future holds," he continued, "but I want to understand you more. I want to know everything your heart carries. I want to walk slowly with you and see where this path leads." A soft wind moved through the trees. Naira's eyes finally lifted. For the first time since they met, she looked straight at him, not just for a second, but long enough for him to see everything she had been hiding. Fear, hope, innocence, trust, and something else growing quietly inside her. "Do you really want to walk with me?" she whispered. "Yes," Luke said. "I do." Tears filled her eyes, not from sadness but from relief. She lowered her gaze again, but the connection had already been made. After a long moment, she spoke again. "Luke, I want to show you something. Something from my life." He nodded. "I'll go with you." They walked together through the trees until they reached a small open area where her people sometimes gathered. Children were playing nearby, laughing, running, full of life. Naira stopped and watched them with quiet affection. "This," she said softly, "is part of why I spoke the way I did. I always felt drawn to children. I always felt like my heart was meant to care for many little ones. I help the families here when they need support. I tell stories to children when they cannot sleep. I hold the little ones when their mothers are busy. This place, this joy, it feels like home to me." Luke watched her carefully. She wasn't speaking from desire alone. She was speaking from compassion, from years of caring for others, without expecting anything in return. "You have a kind heart, Naira," Luke said. "A very kind heart." She looked down. "Sometimes I fear my heart is too big for my quiet voice." Luke smiled gently. "Maybe, but I hear it clearly." "Ah, see?" Her cheeks warmed. They sat near the open field and watched the children play. Naira explained small things: how she helped them learn to fish, how she braided flowers into their hair in spring, how she sang to the little ones during storms. Luke listened with deep interest. realizing more and more why she had spoken so bravely that day. After a long while, they began walking back toward the trail. The sun was low, painting the sky orange and pink. Before they reached the split in the path where they usually parted, Luke stopped. "Naira," he said quietly, "I have made my decision." She froze, breath held, eyes lowered. "I want a future with you," Luke said gently. "I don't know if that future will have 5 children, or 2, or none. But I do know, I want you by my side." Her head lifted slowly, her eyes wide with disbelief. "You want a life with me?" "Yes," he said simply. "I want to build something honest and steady with you." Tears filled her eyes again, and she covered her mouth with her hand as if the emotion was too strong. "I didn't think anyone would ever say that to me," she whispered. Luke stepped a little closer, not touching her, just standing where she could feel his presence. "You deserve someone who sees your worth," he said. "And I see it clearly." For the first time, she smiled fully. A shy, warm, glowing smile that changed her entire face. And in that moment, Luke realized something. He wasn't choosing her out of pity or obligation. He was choosing her because she had touched his heart in a way no one else ever had. This was the beginning of something real, something honest, something that could become a home for both of them. Luke and Naira's connection continued to grow in the weeks that followed. Their lives slowly intertwined, like 2 streams meeting to form a stronger river. Each day brought small discoveries about each other, and each moment reinforced the quiet bond that had begun on the trail. Luke began teaching Naira the ways of the ranch. He showed her how to care for the animals, how to mend fences, and how to check the cattle for signs of illness. Naira, in turn, brought her own wisdom to his world. She taught him how to identify edible plants in the fields, how to notice signs in nature that predicted weather, and how to approach problems calmly, with patience and observation. Luke was amazed at how much she understood the land, even though she had never lived on a ranch before. They worked side by side, often in silence. But the silence was never uncomfortable. It was a silence that spoke of trust and mutual respect. Naira would hum softly while tending the animals, and Luke found himself smiling more than he had in years. He liked her quiet ways, the way she noticed things he would have overlooked, and the care she put into every small action. One evening, as the sun was setting behind the hills, they sat together on a wooden bench outside the barn. The sky was a brilliant orange, fading into pink and purple. The air was warm, with a gentle breeze carrying the scent of dry grass and wildflowers. Naira leaned back slightly, her hands resting on her lap. "Luke," she said softly, "I never thought I would feel this safe, this happy." Luke turned to her, noticing the sincerity in her voice. "You deserve to feel happy and safe," he said gently, "and I want to make sure you always do." Her eyes glistened in the fading light, and for a moment, neither spoke. They just watched the sky together, feeling the comfort of each other's presence. As the weeks passed, the small ranch began to feel more like a home. Naira's influence could be seen in every corner: the flowers she planted near the porch, the small herb garden she tended carefully, the baskets of freshly picked berries she left on the kitchen counter. Luke appreciated the changes, not because he had asked for them, but because they reflected her gentle touch and her way of making the space warm and inviting. Luke also noticed how the local children and families began to approach her more often. They would come to the ranch to seek her guidance, to ask her for help, or simply to enjoy her presence. She laughed softly with them, told stories, braided their hair with colorful threads, and tended to their small worries with patience. Luke watched, feeling pride and admiration for her kind heart. One afternoon, while repairing a fence near the pasture, Luke paused and looked toward Naira, who was kneeling by a patch of wildflowers. She was carefully tying a small bundle of freshly picked herbs together, her hands steady and precise. He walked over slowly, not wanting to startle her. "Everything you do has a purpose," he said, his voice soft. She looked up, a faint smile on her lips. I just want things to feel right. I want our home to feel peaceful, safe, full of life. Luke knelt beside her. It already does, Naira. Because of you. Her cheeks warmed at his words. She looked away briefly, then back at him, her shy smile growing. I didn't know if someone like you would ever truly understand me. She admitted quietly. I do, he said simply. And I will. Their partnership deepened not just through work, but through small acts of care and consideration. Luke would leave a freshly cleaned shirt on a chair for her after a long day, and she would bake bread or preserve berries to leave for him near his tools. They laughed together during simple mistakes, spilled water, tangled ropes, a misbehaving horse. They shared stories of their pasts, of lessons learned and hardships endured, each story building the trust that connected them. One evening, as twilight approached, they sat on the porch, watching the stars begin to appear in the darkening sky. Naira leaned her head on Luke's shoulder, her fingers brushing against his hand. Luke, she whispered, I never expected life to feel like this. I never thought I could be so happy with someone. Luke held her hand gently. You deserve happiness, Naira, and I am glad I get to share it with you. A quiet understanding passed between them. Words were not always necessary. Their hearts spoke to each other in ways that went beyond language. Luke realized that life with Naira would not always be easy, but it would always be honest, filled with trust and respect, and that was more important than anything else. Time passed, and their bond became stronger. They shared meals, cared for animals, tended the land, and supported each other in all small and large ways. Naira's shy confidence grew, and Luke's patience and understanding deepened. Together, they created a rhythm in their lives that felt balanced and complete. The children from the nearby village often visited, and Luke and Naira found joy in seeing them laugh and play around the ranch. Naira guided them patiently, telling stories of courage and kindness, teaching small skills, and offering comfort when the children were hurt or scared. Luke noticed that her gentle approach made everyone feel at ease, and he realized that her wish for children was not just a passing thought. It came from a deep love for care and family. One morning, Luke found Naira sitting quietly under a tree, watching the sunrise. The light painted her face in warm gold, and her eyes were calm and bright. He approached quietly and sat beside her. You know, he said softly, the first day we met, I never imagined we would get here. She smiled faintly. Neither did I. But I am glad we did, he said, turning to look at her fully. You have changed my life, Naira. You have brought a calm, a joy I didn't know I was missing. Her eyes shone, and she reached for his hand. And you have given me trust, safety, and hope, she said quietly. I never thought someone could see me, really see me, and accept me as I am. Luke squeezed her hand gently. I do. Their life together continued with quiet strength. Days were filled with work, laughter, small challenges, and shared victories. Nights were spent in simple companionship, sometimes talking, sometimes in silence, always feeling the warmth of being together. The ranch became more than a home. It became a life they built together, one small act of care at a time. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Naira looked at Luke and smiled. I said I wanted 5 children, she whispered. Luke chuckled softly. And we will see what the future brings. But no matter what, we have already built a life full of care and love. She nodded, leaning against him. Yes, and that is enough for now. They watched the stars emerge, hand in hand, knowing that whatever the future held, they had each other. They had begun a journey from a shy, unexpected confession to a shared life filled with trust, warmth, and hope. Naira's words had been the spark, but it was their daily choices, their respect, and their kindness that turned that spark into a steady flame. Luke and Naira had created a home together, a life where hearts felt safe, voices were heard, and the quiet moments were as meaningful as the words spoken aloud. Their story, which had begun with courage and honesty, continued to grow every day, shaping a future full of promise, care, and love, whether it would hold 5 children or just the joy of 2 hearts walking together. And in that simple, quiet way, they lived their lives, side by side, heart to heart, building a love that was patient, true, and enduring.